I used to always have this nagging feeling while watching the reel, like I was missing something important. I didn't really understand why this music video was the way that it was, and I had a lot of trouble placing it within the context of Ateez's other lore. However, the significance of this music video makes 1,000 times more sense if you have seen Volcano High. Ateez has referenced a lot of outside stories and art over the years. But when I tell you, the real music video is not a reference to Volcano High. This music video is like a very condensed 5-minute remake of Volcano High. Basically, every single scene of the reel in some way pays homage to this movie, and the two follow roughly the same plotline. If you're completely unfamiliar with it, Volcano High is a Korean martial arts film from 2001. It's sort of goofy and overacted, and quite frankly, this movie is bad. But it falls into this niche of trashy fun that makes people love it. Some attendees have said that the reel is a parody of Volcano High. I don't particularly agree with this take because the original source material is so exaggerated and ridiculous. I don't think you could actually make a parody of Volcano High. Like, the campy, humorous nature of the reel results in it being more authentic of a recreation rather than less. Now, I will say that Volcano High is not the only notable piece of media when it comes to the reel. For example, the YouTuber Ray made a video last year pointing out that the scene where they punch the book is a direct recreation of a scene from Go, a joint Japanese and South Korean boxing coming-of-age film also released in 2001. This particular scene was likely chosen because prior to this fight montage, there's some back and forth dialogue where the characters mention an outlaw, a pirate, and treasure. Other movies that are frequently brought up by Ateez fans include the High and Low series and Crow Zero. I've watched all of these, so while Volcano High is, in my opinion, the most overt parallel being drawn here, I think it is safe to say that the reel takes inspiration from the whole diaspora of 2000s East Asian martial arts and action films. The beginning of both Volcano High and the reel are the same. Our main character in Volcano High, that's this guy, Kyung-soo, in the reel it's Mingi, arrives as a new transfer student on his first day of school. To round out the introduction, there's a dramatic shot of the school entrance sign against a backdrop of stormy weather. For Ateez, the storm is a reoccurring background element of Fever-era music videos and beyond. But I think the reel is where it shows up in the most predominant way. And the storm is also a thing in Volcano High. It's a constant presence throughout the film, representing the chaos that's brewing inside the school and the fuse that's been lit by Kyung-soo's arrival. Then there's this whole section of the movie where we're introduced to the various school clubs and their leaders, or presidents. The students at Volcano High are siphoned off into these clubs. All of the clubs hate each other, and they are constantly fighting. The three clubs we see represented in the reel are not exactly the same, but there are some similarities with Volcano High as well as High and Low. First up is the Calligraphy Club. Their set resembles one we see early on in Volcano High when we meet the character Hakrim. Hakrim is the most powerful student at Volcano High. He's not a part of any club, but in the stereotypical hero's journey arc, he acts as the almighty mentor who will go on to train Kyung-soo. Next is the baseball team. I think they're kind of a play on the kendo team from Volcano High, wooden baseball bats in place of the wooden bamboo swords used in kendo. They also resemble the On a High School gang from High and Low, who often fight with baseball bats. The motorcycle club doesn't really have a parallel in Volcano High, but they do very much resemble the Hoodlum squad from High and Low. The biker gang is also a big part of Yunho's story arc in the diary entries, and motorcycles appear at various points throughout Ateez content. I told you before that the students of Volcano High are always fighting with each other. Well, one of the more hilarious things about Ateez's adaptation of this movie is that rather than knockdown, drag-out martial arts battles, they have instead replaced that with dance battles. Yes, that is why there is so much dance battle stuff in this music video. The chosen leader of each club is their best fighter, their best dancer. Hangjun even mentions this point in the behind-the-scenes video. Anyways, there's this particular scene in Volcano High where all of the students show up in the courtyard to argue and fight each other, and we see this portrayed in the reel as well. The reason behind all this fighting is because the students are all after a legendary secret manuscript, which will grant the recipient ancient martial arts powers. The students believe that if they can become the number one, if they can defeat every other student, they will be granted access to this manuscript. Since Kung-soo is the new kid at Volcano High, he doesn't yet belong to any of the clubs. He's an outsider, alone and untested. As such, the clubs take turns attempting to recruit him as well as intimidate him. Tensions rise between Kung-soo and Jang Raeng, the captain of the weightlifting team. His lookalike makes a brief appearance during the second verse of the reel. Meanwhile, the vice principal of Volcano High has been plotting to steal the secret manuscript for himself. He poisons the principal, then throws Hakram in jail, accusing him of the treachery, and enlists the help of a super evil crew called the Five Teachers to gain control over the school. The whole second half of the movie focuses on the students banding together to fight the teachers. Wow! A story about children versus adults, rebels versus rulers, new versus old. Now isn't that just Ateez's bread and butter? Eventually, Kung-soo levels up enough to fight the final boss teacher, a battle which takes place outside during a raging thunderstorm. And we see this represented in the reel with the club leaders and Mingi coming together to create light. Now, with the whole Mingi becoming lightning bit, this is something that's alluded to a few times in Volcano High, but it's more thoroughly explained in the manhwa. This story provides the prologue to the events that happen in the movie, and in it we learn that Kung-soo receives his martial arts powers as a child during an evil teacher plot gone wrong, whereby he is inadvertently struck with magical lightning. There's also other stuff in this book, like the introduction talks about Volcano High being the place where reality meets imagination. In the end, Kung-soo wins his fight against the teachers. He takes the secret manuscript from the vice principal and reveals it to be an empty box with nothing inside. There is no secret treasure. The treasure has been within you all along. The weather clears and peace prevails. A happy ending after all of the turbulence. As a bonus, some bloopers and additional scenes play as the credits roll. What I consider to be the main theme explored in Volcano High, and therefore explored in the reel, is this conflict between youth and adults, and a more broad theme of a hero overcoming adversity, conquering fear, and finding a place to belong. These are, in essence, the main themes of Ateez's Fever series, so it makes sense to me that this is the resulting music video to wrap up the series. The reel is like a summary of the whole Fever series. It hits on its most important points, granted in a very stylized way. It shows us the impending war and rebellious spirit that's been building throughout Fever and will come to a head in the World Series. It's an end that returns us back to the beginning, to clear weather and the school setting of Inception and Things. It's a music video that portrays the ultimate triumph of believing in yourself, knowing you can win and conquer anything in your path. The pure fury and passion of youth who refuse to let adults or anyone else tell them who to be. This is what it means to authentically be yourself, to be real. This is the grand celebration at the end of a long fever. You thought it was over, but there's a little bit more at the end. This is a disclaimer that if you are planning on watching Volcano High, don't watch the Snoop Dogg version. This is one of the most bizarre pieces of media ever, But MTV released a version of Volcano High for American audiences, and all of the voice acting was done by random hip hop artists. And so, yes, Snoop Dogg is in it. But they actually took out about a quarter of the film and rearranged what was left. The cut of the movie and the plot is completely different. So if you want to watch this movie for Ateez lore purposes, watch the Korean version, not the American one. Okay, bye.